So there is a few sweet spots on the market, and today we'll be talking about them. Hi guys, Eric from Tenniszon here. Today we're going to be talking about sweet spot. This is a question that comes back a lot from customers. There's a lot of misconception when it comes to the sweet spot, so today we'll try to clear things out. So what is a sweet spot exactly, guys? It's pretty simple actually. It is the place in the net where when you're going to hit the ball, you're going to have the most power and the most comfort, hence the name sweet spot. Now, there is a few misconceptions that we heard through the year. Namely, a few companies have been saying lately that the sweet spot is more at the top of the racket instead of being lower. It is not true. The sweet spot will always remain at one place in the racket and it'll be lowered in the center. And there is a reason for that. The reason why it is actually lowered in the center, it's simply because there is a throat here that's holding the racket head, and this throat here will basically put a lot more resistance on the frame torsion, especially at that place, which means that you're gonna have a lot more comfort if you're hitting a little lower than the center because of that. Here's something that we want to talk about though. Was talking about companies mentioning that the sweet spot was at the top of the racket, and they're not completely wrong. The thing is, it's not the sweet spot. It's true that professional players tend to hit at the top of the racket. Babolat, for example, were making a few tests and noticed with their play rackets that the players were actually hitting at the top of the racket, which didn't make much sense at first, but then when you start thinking about it, it does. There are a few things that comes in effect here. I said that the part at the bottom is the softest part. Then that means that the top of the racket will be the stiffest spot. So it's not the sweet spot, but the stiff spot. Why are we hitting here? It's because the lever effect of the racket will give more power naturally from the racket and will give more control from the strings at that specific place. So some companies have been interacting with this for the last few years. Babolat, for example, is using a technology called FSI, frame string interaction. Frame string interaction means that at the top of the racket where the players are hitting more often, you're gonna have the string being closer to each other, which will give you more control at this specific spot. But a company that has been legendary for changes that they made with the sweet spot for now decades is Yonex. Yonex, you actually know the racket because of its unusual shape. It was a lot more squarey before, now it's a lot rounder. The fact that we have that kind of shape brings the main string to a length that resembles a lot more the cross strings. Of course, it's not the same, but this will magnify the sweet spot for about 6%. It's a really good thing because that means that if you're using a regular 95 with, Wilson or Head or Babolat, and using a regular 95 that has an isometric racket or isometric shape, you will have a bigger sweet spot naturally on that isometric shape. So one thing to be considering when you're buying your own racket is to make sure of the head size. The bigger the head size, the bigger the natural sweet spot will be. But don't forget, the bigger the sweet spot is, the more power you have and the less control you will have. So that brings me to that question. Is it absolutely good for everyone to have a bigger sweet spot? Well, the answer to that question is not always. Like I said before, a bigger sweet spot will give you more power but less control, and that's not really always what you're looking for, especially if you're a competition player. Competition player, you'll notice the rackets are usually smaller head, they have smaller sweet spot, which has a lot more control on the ball.